This video is brought to you by Brilliant. Today, the EU launches legal action against itself, Haiti's Prime Minister resigns, and India plans to enact a controversial citizenship law that excludes Muslims. From TLDR News, this is your daily briefing for Tuesday, the 12th of March, 2024. The EU is about to take itself to court over the contentious transfer of €10 billion to Hungary last December. Yesterday, the European Parliament's Legal Affairs Committee voted nearly unanimously, with 16 members in favour, 1 opposed and no abstentions, to take the European Commission to court. Led by President Ursula von der Leyen, the Commission is accused of breaching its obligation to protect taxpayer money from being misused. Specifically, the European Parliament has accused von der Leyen of caving into Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban's blackmail of the European Commission by unfreezing 10 billion funds for Hungary. The €10 billion were initially blocked by the EU for concerns over poor human rights and rule of law in Hungary. The decision to unblock these funds came last December, a day before an EU summit in Brussels where leaders were set to discuss new aid to Ukraine and the opening of accession negotiations for Kiev. As the Council of Member States have to vote unanimously on these decisions, which Orban was threatening to block, essentially the funds were unfrozen in exchange for Orban agreeing not to block sending aid and starting negotiations with Ukraine. Now, however, the European Parliament has decided that the Commission did not substantially safeguard the EU's financial interests in its interactions with Orban, and have argued that Hungary never met the rule of law requirements to receive the funds. So, the Parliament is taking the Commission to court over a case of violating what's called the Rule of Law Conditionality Regulation. Now, this regulation permits the EU to suspend funds from the EU budget, in the case of which a member country's poor rule of law poses a serious risk to the EU's financial interests. Parliament has previously sued the Commission for not enforcing the conditionality regulation on Hungary before in 2021. Von der Leyen has defended the approval of the funds last December, stating Hungary had in fact made developments to comply with the rules. Parliament, however, is not convinced, and the Greens MEP Daniel Freund told Politico last night, "We believe we have a solid case, as the Commission has contradicted itself on whether Hungary is respecting the rule of law." The committee's move is being backed by members of von der Leyen's own European People's Party, including EPP leader Manfred Weber. So this whole legal battle may jeopardize von der Leyen's campaign in the upcoming European Parliament elections, and her bid to run as president of the EU Commission again. A final decision for the case to go to court before a deadline on March 25th will be made on Thursday.
There's more on the way, but be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to make the daily briefing part of your daily routine, or just search for us on your podcast app to listen along.
Haiti's embattled Prime Minister Ariel Henry has announced that he will resign once a transitional presidential council is created. Amid a spiraling security situation which has seen the country overwhelmed by armed gangs, soaring violence, and a collapse of state institutions, Prime Minister Henry, who has run the country since President Jovenel Moïse was assassinated in 2021, has bowed to domestic and international pressure. The announcement of this intention to resign comes after he met with US Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Caribbean leaders in Jamaica. Henry said, "The government that I'm running cannot remain insensitive in front of this situation. There is no sacrifice that is too big for our country. The government I'm running will remove itself immediately after the installation of the council." Henry's situation basically became untenable after he was physically unable to return to Haiti following a trip to Kenya where he discussed plans for a Kenyan-led multinational security force to be sent to Haiti, backed by the UN. But upon his return, Haiti's international airports were forced to close due to gang violence, and the neighboring Dominican Republic denied him entry, leaving him stranded in the US territory of Puerto Rico. The Transitional Presidential Council will have 7 voting members and 2 non-voting observers, with representatives from various political coalitions, civil society, the business sector, and a religious leader. It will be able to appoint an interim prime minister, and any person who plans on running in Haiti's next election will not be allowed to be part of the council. In other news, India's government has announced plans to enact a controversial citizenship law, which has been criticized for excluding Muslims. It comes as Prime Minister Narendra Modi seeks a 3rd term in office with his Hindu nationalist party, the BJP, later this year. The Citizenship Amendment Act makes it easier for non-Muslim religious minorities from Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Afghanistan to obtain naturalization. People applying for citizenship under the new law will have to prove that they arrived in India from one of these countries before the 31st of December 2014. However, the bill sparked mass protests when it was passed in 2019, with scores of people killed during clashes. Critics say the law violates the secular principles of India's constitution, and Muslims are particularly concerned that the government could use it alongside a proposed national citizens register to marginalize them. In a statement on social media on Monday, India's Home Ministry said that there were many misconceptions about the act, which it said was only for those who have suffered persecution for years and have no other shelter in the world except India. The announcement has led to new protests in some states, including Kerala, where the ruling Communist Party of India has called for statewide protests. Moving to Russia now, where lawmakers from the ruling United Russia Party have proposed legislation that could rewrite history by nullifying the USSR's 1954 decision to transfer Crimea from the Russian to the Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic. The draft bill aims to give Russian authorities a legal basis to argue that Crimea was never really part of Ukraine. The Kiev Independent cites the two lawmakers behind the bill as saying it would make it increasingly difficult for Western allies to support Kiev's intention to take back Crimea. The draft bill describes the handover of Crimea under Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev as a political crime carried out in violation of the constitutions of the RSFSR and the USSR, and without taking into account the will of the Russian people. The peninsula in the Black Sea was seized by Russia in 2014 and annexed following a referendum described by the Western governments and Ukraine as illegal. Years later, in 2022, it was used as a launchpad for Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Our final uplifting story today is that UK's greenhouse gas emissions fell by 5.7% to their lowest level since 1879, according to new analysis by Carbon Brief. The drop in emissions was largely due to an 11% fall in gas demand. The new report also found that coal use fell by 23% to its lowest level since the 1730s. It came as the UK returned to its position as a net electricity importer in 2023, reducing demand for domestically generated gas power by more than 20%. The decline was also helped by other factors such as above-average temperatures reducing the need for heating, and Russia's invasion of Ukraine causing weaker demand for gas.
A lot of stuff that we talk about at TLDR News can seem pretty complicated, especially when we dive into economics and detailed data, which is why we use Brilliant.org to keep us sharp. Brilliant is where you learn by doing, with thousands of interactive lessons in maths, data analysis, programming, and AI. Brilliant is a learning platform designed to be uniquely effective. Their first principles approach helps you build understanding from the ground up, which is also how we structure TLDR videos. Each lesson is filled with hands-on problem solving that lets you play with concepts, a method proven to be 6 times more effective than just watching lectures. Plus, all content on Brilliant is crafted by an award-winning team of teachers, researchers, and professionals from MIT, Caltech, Duke, Microsoft, Google, and more. Brilliant helps build your critical thinking skills through problem solving, not memorizing. So, while you're building real knowledge on specific topics, you'll also be becoming a better thinker. Learning a little every day is one of the most important things you can do, both for your personal and professional growth. Brilliant helps you build real knowledge in minutes a day, with fun lessons you can do whenever you have time. It's the opposite of mindless scrolling. Brilliant recently launched a ton of new content in data, all of which uses real-world data to train you to see trends and make better informed decisions, something politicians could really learn from. Anyway, these are for learners of any level to start or continue learning data analysis, with a fully built-out suite of new content, from Bayes' theorem to multiple linear regression. And you can truly learn by doing, as you'll be working with real datasets from sources like Starbucks, Twitter, Spotify, and more. To try everything that Brilliant has to offer for free for a full 30 days, click on the link in the description. You'll also get 20% off an annual premium subscription. Thanks for watching, and thanks to Brilliant for their support of TLDR News.